The fearful symmetry of Us movies. Jordan Peele paste. The people at the door never say anything, but the child, who has not always lived in the room, and can remember sunlight and its mother's voice, sometimes speaks. "I will be good," it says. "Please let me out," they never answer. "You the ones who walk away from Omelas," Ursula K. Le Guin. It's a joy unparalleled to watch a new artist's distinctive style as it's emerging. With Us, I complain and about S reluctance to give us a diversity of experience, as legions online scream about any inclusion of female leads or people of color at the center of a story being pandering or box-checking, so it is gratifying that Us manages to both prove my point about the value of storytelling from a new perspective and debut as the #1 movie in America. The online discourse surrounding Us is in the midst of a backlash against characterizing the movie as elevated horror, justly reminding horror fans that an important and diverse genre is typically viewed with disdain, even when there are just as many eye-rollingly terrible dramas in theaters. In Peele's case, elevated is a particularly puzzling designation when his movies are based so firmly in the idea of a sinister underworld, out of sight and mind but always a danger. Get Out gave viewers that theme of being cast into darkness while being shoved under into a place of powerlessness and despair, forgotten who reacts its zenith, or perhaps its nadir in Us. Peele's statement on not just race but on particularly American ideas of disenfranchisement and othering. It is not merely gripes about the plausibility of this dark mirror society, which somehow produced what was probably generations of pristine simulacra, even though we're assured that the masterminds behind the insidious cloning project simply abandoned it, don't matter all that much if you accept that the tethered are capable of independent agency but constricted and guided by the powerful compulsion to mimic their originals. Red's particular lay that logistical skepticism aside, and you're left with a chilling story that evokes the nagging, gnawing complicity with which we live daily. The sweatshop worker. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions all land, with great violence, upon the body. Ta-Nehisi Coates. The most unsettling maker's mark on Peele's first two films is their subversion of identity. It's this shared aspect, the sheer physicality of that fear is written on the faces that Peele uses to fill his frames, in Get Out as in Us, in which he argues that kind of terrorizing ultimately makes a monster of both parties. After Adelaide, Peele, a black writer-director who centers his narratives on black protagonists, now has two original screenplays under his belt that have wildly overperformed at the box office and dominated critical discourse. He's done it with 2018 Paste Media Group. All rights reserved.